Someone to help us break down the overturning of this conviction. Dmitriy Shakhnevich is a criminal defense lawyer, and he joins us now from New York. Thanks so much for making time for us today, Dmitry.
Thanks for having me.
So I understand that the news of this conviction being overturned, you were pretty shocked by it?
It's so rare. Statistically speaking, cases are virtually never reversed on appeal, and particularly as it relates to questions like this. Judges have enormous latitude, discretion they call it, to make these kinds of rulings. So it's certainly shocking.
So walk us through some of the specifics here, because, if the judge made this decision when it comes to the appeal, because it was a reflection of, having these extra witnesses talking about their experiences with Weinstein, and that was going too far because it was, in terms of just trying to get a reflection of him being a bad actor in the past. How can one judge see it one way and then another see it another way in terms of what's acceptable?
Well, the trial judge will make rulings at the trial level. The appellate court's function is to determine whether or not there was an abuse of discretion, whether or not the judge's determinations at the trial were so outlandish that they require reversal, and whether or not, given the appropriate rulings, the verdict could have been different. So that's what the appellate division ruled today.
So, did that surprise you, that particular aspect of it was, what the appellant court took issue with?
Look, in so many criminal cases in New York, the defendant has a past, a bad past. And the idea is, how much of that do we let into the trial so as to preserve the defendant's rights before the jury? Because what we don't want, right, if a trial is a search for the truth, what we don't want is the jury rendering a verdict not based on the relevant facts, but things that happened in the past, right? Now, the counter argument is that some of these things are relevant to the charges. There may be patterns or schemes or conducts that were in play as it relates to the current charges. But you don't want a jury to look past that, look to the uncharged acts, and render a verdict based on those.
So, the lawyer for Harvey Weinstein, we were listening to just a little earlier, talking about how they believed that all along Harvey Weinstein didn't get a fair trial. I guess it depends on the perspective there in terms of whether that was or wasn't the case. The appeals court saying that I guess that it wasn't. What do you think?
Well, initially, the prosecution sought to admit, I believe, a dozen of these witnesses. The trial judge had narrowed it down to 4. And we, as a society, the law, we afford trial judges this enormous discretion, right? And so that's why this is so shocking, and that's why this is so rare. If this case is retried, then the trial judge assigned to the case will obviously be guided by this ruling, and perhaps we'll see a different case to some degree.
If this is retried, we did hear there that there is an intention to retry it, but what kind of challenges could that come up against? If some of these accusations, for example, if they're outside of the statute of limitations now, they're so far in the past.
Well, that's one issue, that possibly some of these charges aren't able to be brought. But beyond that, Weinstein's defense team now has testimony that these witnesses put forth. And should some of the same witnesses come forward in the second trial, they'll be able to make distinctions, impeach based on inconsistent statements. So certainly today was a good day for Weinstein in more ways than one.
Do you think that this will go to trial again? I'm thinking about the victims that were involved in this, who, went through the whole process already. To go through it again, it'd be a huge commitment, of course.
I have no doubt that the Manhattan DA will see if they can retry this case in good faith. And if they can do that, I'm sure we'll see a second trial likely next year.
Okay. Dmitry, really appreciate your perspective on this today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's Dmitry Shakhnevich, a criminal defense lawyer, and he joined us from New York.